Right, my friends, I'm told that we are live very quickly. Stephen Manning from the Integrity Ireland Association. My apologies for the rather casual. I put a tie on for you guys, the casual attire and the the feral hairdo. But anyway, we're working on a project, and I can relax and not worry too much about the business suit and the short back and sides and so on. Anyway, the point of today's brief live video, we've already tried to do this already, guys. We had some problems with it. Let's call it technical problems. We can't be seeing gremlins and everything or dark hands at work. But anyway, this is just to promote the March for Justice tomorrow morning in Dublin at around 10:30 in the morning at the four courts. Now, the purpose for this get-together is to, well, first of all, it's to raise awareness, because to make a sort of a confession here, despite the many, many years, or perhaps because of the many, many years I've spent trying to secure justice and truth and honor and decency through the mechanisms of the Irish justice system, and being continuously and repeatedly betrayed, disappointed, let down, deceived, given the runaround, jailed, and so on and so forth, I no longer have any confidence that the system is going to reform itself. Now, I want people to listen to this, please, because it's a breakthrough in understanding, friends. Most of us think that if we just replace the bad apples in the barrel, or the bad guys at the top, with sort of decent, honorable people, that the problem, this overarching problem we have of corruption in high places, lies, deceptions, people making careers out of exploiting and deceiving us, that this problem will somehow go away. I'm telling you now, guys, it won't. But these attempts to raise awareness are crucially important, but because without full awareness amongst the general public of what's really going on, we're never actually going to get to the point where we understand the problem sufficiently to even start thinking about practical and workable solutions. So the fact of the matter is, and I'll just flash up a couple of the books we wrote previously: DIY Justice in Ireland. Again, if anybody's interested, these are still available online. If you can trust the system at all, there are mechanisms in place where you can hold errant authority figures to account. There's another one: Indictment and a Petition for a Public Inquiry into State-Sponsored Criminality in Ireland. At this, I followed all the proper processes and the various departments and committees up in the Houses of the Oireachtas, the Irish Parliament. By hook and by crook, basically, were able to shut down any legitimate attempts to raise awareness in the corridors of power about the abhorrent corruption and mistreatment of decent members of the public by the system. And the system in particular, I'm talking about the politicians, I'm talking about senior civil servants, I'm talking about the judiciary, and I'm talking about all of the lackeys and toadies that blindly serve them under that worn out mantra: I'm just doing my job. Now, if you can make it tomorrow, 10:30 at the four courts, there will be some inspired speakers there. What you're doing, it's an opportunity to say to the government and to these corrupt judges who are basically looking after their buddies, their colleagues, their cronies in so-called high places, when in fact they're actually the lowest of places morally, ethically, and in regards to truth and decency. They are the lowest places these people inhabit. But of course, they are rewarding each other for their ability to maintain the corrupt status quo. Another book that we wrote a little while back, Criminality in the Irish Courts and the Absence of the Rule of Law, still very, very pertinent, my friends, especially to this demonstration tomorrow. I can't personally be there, I'm afraid to say. I'm working on a project, as I said. But, for example, this book names 40 judges and then another senior civil servants, politicians, and office holders, and the crimes they are committing. I mean, we put it down in a book and we published it. These are the crimes they're committing. These are the attempts we've made to try and get the system itself to do what it tells us that it will do. They will hold these people accountable. I apologize, guys, I've had a long day today. Hold the perpetrators accountable through appeal courts, through ombudsmen, and if all that fails, you can go to the European Court of Human Rights. But what they don't tell you is that the people in these positions of authority and power will use every trick in the book. They will lie to you, they will deceive you. They're earning money hand over fist at every step of the way as well. And when that fails, they'll just break the law, or they'll make up new laws, okay? Now, I jotted down a couple of thoughts on this, guys, that perhaps a few of you might reflect upon, especially if you turn up at this place tomorrow. And it's a sort of a generic observation, because I know a lot of people in the pro-justice movement who have been involved in battles in the courts, most of them absolutely valid battles where they have been wronged usually by large institutions or law firms or by the system itself, and they go into the courts seeking redress and looking for justice. Hardly anybody, though, has asked the primary question of where did the law come from? I mean, why do we need law in the first place? And we have to ask questions like this in order to be able to measure and judge and assess whether or not the law today is actually doing what it's supposed to be doing for society. And my argument, very simply, and it will be quite short today, and I hope this works, because previously there was no sound, but my argument is simply that the law is there to protect us, sort of ordinary people, from sociopaths and psychopaths. All right. And very simply, without getting complicated, sociopaths and psychopaths are people who do not care about other people, and therefore they engage in behaviors that are harmful to other people. And unless there's some sort of punitive system in place or laws and regulations and so on, they will do it because they don't see anything particularly wrong with it. So these are sociopaths and psychopaths, which are the opposite of empaths. Now, empaths are probably the great bulk of the population, okay? Now, empaths are people who care about other people, basically, all right? And they're aware of when they harm other people, and it usually bothers them. And that it's a sort of a self-regulating law, if you like. You don't harm others. And so basically, empaths do not need such laws to know how to act socially and properly. All right. So you get this sort of general concept. So we have the law, out of which has grown, of course, the whole of the legal profession, the courts, the judiciary, and all the rest of it. My take on it is they're way out of control. They're way out of hand. And how ironic, of course, how ironic it is that the sociopaths and psychopaths have usurped and perverted the law so as to more effectively control society and ensure that the diabolical status quo, which is the way things are, I'm sure there's not many people who will disagree with me now, the status quo, the way things are, the way the world is run at the moment is diabolical in more ways than one. So these sociopaths and psychopaths have usurped and perverted the law to more effectively control society and ensure that the diabolical status quo, which in turn rewards other wickedness and immorality, they want to ensure that that is protected, funded, and facilitated, and that we, the empaths and the disenfranchised masses, are kept under control. Now, I know that's quite a lot to sort of grasp in one go. It's just something I scribbled down as the thought that came to me to try and summarize to people. In ideal societies, of course, and before all the naysayers say, oh, that's just wishful thinking or utopia or, cuckoo, head in the sky sort of thinking. But in an ideal society, we wouldn't, of course, need laws and police and courts and armies and all that if the general mindset of people was empathetic, caring and concerning for your neighbors and for others. If that was our primary motivation, to care and think about others, we wouldn't need all this. So what unfortunately has happened is the system, and the system I want to point out, guys, the system as I talk about it is this, basically it's a global corporation that we're all locked into. Even those of us who are doing our best to find ways to escape the tentacles of the system find ourselves blocked into participating in it even if it is only to get your wages at the end of the week, to buy petrol, to partake in society, generally speaking, you have to partake in this diabolical system. Now, I believe it's starting to change. I believe that we've reached a point where there is so much wickedness and evil in the world, and so many of these senior people, I'll say senior in the sense that they're in senior positions of power and authority within these diabolical systems, they are so utterly corrupted and indeed clinically evil. All right, strong word, guys, but they are so embedded in this sociopathic and psychopathic way of doing things that they cannot be reformed. The problem, as I said at the beginning of this short video, is that it is the system itself that trains people, including empaths, decent, good, ordinary, everyday people who don't want to do anything wrong or bad to other people. But they find themselves, if you want to have a job, you want to get involved in a profession, you want to join a big organization or corporation or work for the state, one of the first things that is conveyed to you is, you will go far, my lad, if you do as you're told and keep your head down, right? The only time to put your head up is when you're defending the system and protecting your corrupt seniors from being held accountable. So maybe those of you who are able to go tomorrow and support the speakers at the forecourts and show the government. I mean, I hope it's beyond the need to articulate any further that the government does not work for the people. They have vested interests. They pretend that we have a democracy for a few days, whilst they get their autocratic political parties elected. And that's another fundamental question I keep asking people. What is the opposite of democracy? This concept, we think that we're all living in modern Western democracies, and oh, aren't we so lucky we're not like the people in Uganda or North Korea or wherever it might be, or China. And we say, well, really? What's the difference then? Oh, well, you see, North Korea is a dictatorship. It's a tyranny. And what's a tyranny? It's an autocracy. An autocracy means a top-down pyramid shape with one guy or a principal or a committee or whatever it might be at the top dictating to everybody else what they can and cannot do. And if you don't do it, of course, there's punishments and whatever. All right. That's what an autocracy is. It is the opposite. It's almost the diametric opposite of a democracy. Okay. I'm working on some of this material now, guys, so as to try and share and get people to get their heads around this notion. We think when in Ireland, or this would be the same now in America or in the UK or most so-called democratic nations, right? There are a few rare exceptions now, but most democratic nations, the public believes that because they have a vote, that they're involved and engaged in a democratic process. Even when the voting machines haven't been rigged to produce a false result, or even when the local county registrars are dirtbags and will disappear votes in order to keep their buddies in power, the same buddies who gave them the job in the first place, and so on. We all know this goes on. Or even when the police don't take the boxes under lock and key to the Garda station so they can't be interfered with, but instead leave them at the homes of the returns officers over the weekend, and so on and so forth. Even when all of that isn't happening, what in fact we're being asked to do is to vote another autocracy into power. Because the minute those TDs or MPs or houses of representatives, whatever, the minute they take their seats, they look away from the public that has just elected them, and they look to their party leader and say, what would you like me to do, sir? Because if they don't do that, then they have the party whip or whatever equivalent they have in different countries will step in and say, you, my lad, are not going to get the support of the party when you try to run next time. You're not going to get the money that we keep voting ourselves from the public purse to put us back into power, and so on and so forth. Anyway, my friends, unusually for me, I'm going to keep it pretty short this evening. We're only at around 15 minutes. And with apologies again for the casual, somewhat feral look, I'm working on a project, an important project, and it's allowed me to sort of relax a wee bit and not worry too much about my appearance and things like that. The tie has been put on out of respect for my audience. I think I'll continue to do that no matter how wild otherwise it might get to look. But again, please understand the benefits of this gathering tomorrow at the forecourts. The major benefit, even though perhaps even some of the people there don't fully realize this, there is a point in protesting. It unsettles the powers that be a little bit, but we've seen how they can manipulate and use Machiavellian tactics, or the police, the guards, all of these unvetted military age migrants that are coming into the country, sitting there just waiting for the beck and call. I've seen ranks of Gardaí involved in so-called crowd control. They have no identification on them whatsoever. Most of them don't talk. And we predicted this, I think it was as much as 3 years ago, when questions started to be raised about, well, how is it that there's so many military-aged young men fleeing so-called war zones without members of their family and all the rest of it? And it was suggested at that time that they will be a captive population that will, number one, vote for the political parties who have so generously opened up Ireland's doors, or whether it be Germany or France or America, wherever it might be. That's point number one. They will feel loyal to those political parties who have made sure, by the way, when these people have come into the country and in the different circumstances that we know about, of course, there's some credible, valid cases. But as we know, many have arrived undocumented. Some have destroyed their documents. There are reports of other countries emptying their jails and sending all their jetsam and flotsam to these Western countries because of this somewhat ridiculous open borders policy. But one of the things that could happen is, in the event that our own national Irish Gardaí and Army grow consciences and refuse to turn on their own people, their own kith and kin, there will be a very handy supply of ready, eager, and, dare I say it, some already coming from cultures of savagery, which, anyway, like I said, let's hope it doesn't come to that. But we have to understand, guys, that as long as we maintain these autocratic systems, and regardless of what they tell you, again, I hate to hammer this home, but I think it's super important, friends. If you look at, let's just use the Irish government for an example, okay? The Irish government is made up of different departments, okay? And each of the departments is headed up by senior civil servants, many of whom are paid more than the ministers that are, cyclically appointed to supposedly dictate what gets done in the department. I can tell you for a fact that these senior civil servants are basically telling the ministers what they can and cannot do. And the senior civil servants stay in place regardless of which government comes or goes. All right. So there's far too much autocratic power masquerading as democracy. And it's the job of the TDs, while they're out campaigning, to convince us otherwise, to lie to us, to convince us that once you vote me in, I'm going to do A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. No, they're not. What they're doing is lying to you, misleading to you, creating a narrative to get you to vote for them so that they don't have to go to the bother of interfering illegally, illicitly, and criminally with the vote through corrupted county registrars and returns officers and such, because the minute they're in power, they turn to the party leader. And if they don't, we've seen it, what happens, guys? If they don't kowtow to the party leader, they lose the party funding, the support of the party, and at very best, they have to then try to run as an independent. And again, if you haven't been watching the news lately, guys, you know, the last couple of times I ran as an independent, even RTE, the national broadcaster, stopped allowing us the 2 minutes presentation to the public, which would give us at least some measure of publicity. Everything else you have to pay for yourself. The major political parties, they're stealing taxpayers' money by the millions to pay for all their posters and their advertising and their office and their staff and all the propaganda that they do. It's all ironically and sadly and desperately sadly being paid for by us. So anyway, here we go. I'll wrap this up at 20 minutes, guys. Just a short one. Thank you to everybody. I see some comments here. I'm sorry, I won't have time to read them because I'll keep this short, but I will send messages if I need to. But here's an opportunity tomorrow. There's some good people are going to be speaking there. If you can make it to the forecourts for 10:30, it's an opportunity to show our corrupt government, and they are absolutely and utterly corrupt. These people are sociopaths and psychopaths. Even if they weren't sociopaths when they joined the civil service or when they first ran for office, the system trains and conditions them to become sociopaths and psychopaths. Otherwise, they can't function. It's literally that simple. The system requires them to sell their consciences and to lie and to deceive. And the more adept they are at doing that, the more handsomely they get rewarded. As we just saw with TD Michael McGrath, wasn't it, who has just been given a plush job in the European Commission. Yeah, well done, Michael. Yeah, I'm sure you earned that. It's amazing what 30 pieces of silver can buy you these days. God bless everyone. I keep promising that I intend to try and do a weekly video about topical subjects. There's an awful lot going on. But if you can make it tomorrow, this is my best attempt to support the March for Justice tomorrow, and hope that everybody starts to wake up and realize that it's not just these corrupted individuals that are the problem. It is the system that they inhabit, which trains and conditions them. If they want to succeed and if they have ambition and they want to get to the top, they have to be corrupt. Thank you for listening, my friends. Hopefully now I can stop this. All right. I'm sorry to say I cannot see how to do it. Yeah, it doesn't show me how. End the stream. Here we are. Sorry, guys. Embarrassing for me, but anyway, end the stream. Thank you.